A magic square is a grid of numbers in which every column, row and diagonal all add up to the same number. In this example, they add up to 34. So do the 4 corner numbers and the 4 center numbers. In fact, almost any square of numbers will add up to the same total, even opposing pairs of numbers. In this 4x4 magic square, there are 86 ways of arriving at the same total, which is why creating a magic square gets such a great reaction from an audience. They assume that it is incredibly difficult, and without a secret method, it is. Magic squares are of immense interest to mathematicians, but they have their roots in the occult magic. It is said that 4,000 years ago, the Chinese called the magic square Lu Shu. There is a legend that a turtle found near the Yellow River had a pattern of dots on its back. They represented the numbers from 1 to 9 and were arranged in a classic 3x3 magic square. Although magic squares are mathematical constructions, people have always given them mystical attributes. Magic squares have been used as lucky charms in India, sewn into the shirts of Turkish warriors, and, of course, used as inspiration by astrologers, wizards, and artists. On the facade of the Sagrada Familia Church in Barcelona, there is a famous religious magic square. This square contains duplicate numbers, and each row and column is deliberately contrived to total 33. Why? Because this is assumed to be the age of Jesus when he was crucified. Albrecht Dürer, the 16th century German artist, produced one of the best-known pictures incorporating a magic square. It is an engraving called Melancholia and includes a 4x4 magic square. The columns, rows, diagonals all add up to 34. You will notice that it is made up of all the numbers from 1 to 16. There are 880 ways of constructing a magic square made up of the numbers 1 to 16, but Dürer chose this one for a very special reason. It hides a secret. The 2 cells in the center of the bottom row are 15 and 14. 1514 was the date the engraving was made. The numbers either side of them are 4 and 1. The fourth and the first letter of the alphabet are D and A. If you want to be like mystery author Dan Brown, you can reverse them to get the initials of the artist, Albrecht Dürer. There is a very simple formula for creating a magic square that will produce any total between 33 and 99. I believe the technique was created by H. Adrian Smith. It works using a template, a square that is already complete except for 4 key numbers. There are 4 empty cells in this magic square, and the axes represent a number you need to calculate. Let me give you an example. Let's say we want to make this square add up to 56. The first thing you do is mentally subtract 20 from 56. 56 minus 20 equals 36. This is X, your key number, and you write it on the cell on the top line. Next, you complete the cell on the second line. Subtract 1 from your key number, so 36 minus 1 is 35. For the cell in the third line, we add 2 to our key number. 36 plus 2 is 38. And for the cell on the bottom line, we add 1 to our key number. 36 plus 1, 37. The magic square is complete. Each row adds up to 56. Each column adds up to 56. So do the diagonals, the center squares, the corners, and many other combinations of 4 numbers. I mentioned adding and subtracting numbers from your key numbers, but formulas like x minus 1 and x plus 1 can look confusing. I don't use them. Here is how I remember what to do. The key number, that is the number called out minus 20, always goes on the top line. Here, 56 minus 20, in this case, 36. I then go to this square on the left, and because I am going to the left, I remember to subtract 1 from the key number. 36 minus 1, 35. Next, I fill in the cell on the extreme right, and because I am going to the right, it is easy to think of it as adding 1 to the key number. That leaves only 1 cell blank, and it is easy enough to remember to add 2, 38. It is a small idea, but moving to the left and right and using that as my guide to remind me to subtract or add numbers is easier for me to remember than even the simplest mathematical formula. There is another way of looking at this. If you start at the left and draw a circle connecting the 4 key numbers, you will find that they are in numerical order. 35, 36, 37, 38. Again, you might find this way of visualizing the key numbers easier than thinking about addition or subtraction. That leaves one problem. It is easy to work out the value of the 4 key numbers, but how do you remember the other 12 numbers on the magic square? Well, you could memorize them like you would a couple of phone numbers. You could convert the numbers to words and memorize them as a phrase. If you are familiar with the Nicola system and mnemonics, you might want to try this. The numbers can be on the board or pad in small writing, invisible to the audience, but very clear to you. You can have them written on the side of the marker pen you are using. Or even tattooed on your arm. A simple solution is to prepare a pad like this. It has a partially completed magic square and an empty magic square. When you begin the routine, you show the empty magic square to the audience. As you talk, you close the pad. Later, you open it to the partially complete magic square, keeping the page facing away from the audience. When you ask someone for a number, so you can do an instant magic square, you only pretend to write lots of numbers on the board. Really, you are filling in the 4 empty cells. 2 important notes here. During the finale, don't call out the numbers quickly, one after the other, and then call out the total. The first couple of times you do this, you need to add up the numbers slowly so that the audience can follow along. You do it like this. 8 plus 11, 19, plus 36, 55, plus 1, 56. Let the audience follow every step of the calculation. Do this with a couple of rows and columns. After that, the audience will take your word for it when you tell them that every line totals the same number. Remember to leave plenty of writing space around the edges of the magic square so that you can write down the totals. If you are going to give away the board, notepaper or business card you are working on, do your best to make your handwriting as neat and legible as possible. As magicians, we have all heard of the magic square. But for me, it was math magician Arthur Benjamin who demonstrated how entertaining it could be. He appeared as a guest on my television show in Portugal in 1996. Let's take a look.
Attention in that corner. I did that so I could get these four squares. 18 plus 21 is 39, plus 12 is 51, plus 24 is 75 to add up. And I figured, heck, as long as we got that group of four, let's have a party. We may as well get this group of four. 25, 36, 58, 75, 13, 40, 57, 75, 19, 35, 61, 75. But did I stop there? No! I said, Maria, I'm going to be happy. Once we got this group of four, this group of four. Now, I have to apologize, Maria. I was not able to get this group of four, nor that group of four to add up. But I had to do it that way if I was going to get these four in the middle. I knew that would be important to you. 12, 29, 48, 75. But don't take my word for any of these calculations. Please keep this as a souvenir for me. And let's all give Maria here a nice round of applause. Thank you, Maria, very much.
Arthur Benjamin. Arthur Benjamin inspired me to come up with a version of the magic square that I could use in my professional shows. I have a different style from Arthur, and I knew I wasn't going to rely on memory or the ability to carry out mathematical calculations quickly the way that Arthur does. The work that Arthur Benjamin specializes in takes a lot of practice, and you have to be practicing constantly. I needed a method for the magic square that I could use for a while, put aside, and then pick up again any time that I wanted to include in a show. I didn't want a routine that required me to be on form when it came to making calculations. So I came up with this, the magic square I use in my professional shows.
Saúdos Portugal, saúdos Coimbra.
Boas noites, Gaioso, boas noites a todos vostedes aquí esta noite e os que están na casa, porque hoxe
sí, pedimos colaboración antes, ¿no? Está chamando xente,
Está chamando xente.
Non sei, creo que temos xa algún... Ahora me di algo.
Sí, bueno, explicar que aquí teño papeliños que dentro ten números do 1 ao 100.
Sí.
E a persoa que chame, a primeira colaboración que vamos a ter esta noite, onde vamos desafiar un pouquiño o caos, vai a ser unha forma de man inocente para elegir un número.
Correcto.
Temos alguén que...
Hola. Hola, que tal, amigo, amiga?
Hola.
Hola, amigo, que tal? Como, caleo, podemos tutear, non?
Sí, sí.
Somos xóvenes os dous. Como te chamas?
Jorge.
Jorge, de que lugar nos chama?
Pois estou chamando desde Blanes.
Blanes. Un pouco lonxe de aquí,
Pois
bueno,
sí, un pouquiño.
Vamos a la veña, pois entón, dende Blanes, estás aquí con Luis de Mates. Jorge.
Jorge, boas noites, Jorge.
Boas noites.
Aquí dentro, gracias por chamar, aquí dentro teño 100 papeliños, cada un ten un número. Pero se, o que eu quero é que, Xorxe, elixas un número. Pero se eu pregunto, dime un número, o mellor algunhas persoas podían chegar a pensar que de alguma maneira quen colleu a chamada díxote algo. Eu quero que se decida de fronte de todo o mundo, non? Entonces, Gaioso vai a sacar un papeliño, pero ti, Xorxe, vais a poder decidir se o primeiro papeliño que Gaioso retire é o número elexido, se é o segundo papeliño ou o terceiro papeliño. Ti que queres, Xorxe, que sea o primeiro, o segundo ou o terceiro papeliño que Gaioso aquí de dentro saque? Xorxe?
O terceiro papeliño.
O terceiro, non o segundo.
Dixo o terceiro.
Terceiro. Ben, moi ben.
No, o que queiras, o primeiro, o segundo. E vou sacar...
Terceiro.
Vale. Bueno, empezo logo, non?
Eso es, vamos, colle el que queiras, Gaioso, un papeliño. Tiramos papeliño, este non interesa. Ben, perfecto.
O primeiro, este non o lixixe, non?
Este non interesa. Vamos a ver que tiñamos aquí. O primeiro papeliño decía 72. Este non é o número que ti elexiste, que é o primeiro. Vamos ao segundo papeliño.
Vou con outro, Xorxe. Este non, non?
Non.
Este tampouco é o papeliño, verdade? O sexa, este papeliño poñía que é o número 60. Tampouco é. O que ti elixiste, Xorxe, que vai ser o terceiro papeliño, este agora. Quita o que queiras.
É por estropearlle un día o xogo ao mago, non sei que facer. Ves un día lle sale algo mal.
Este, Xorxe, é o teu papeliño. Queres cambiar ou é este papeliño seguro?
É ese.
Este.
No, dixo tres, sí.
Tres, moi ben. Vamos a abrir.
Non o líes, tía.
Non o líes.
Quer influir.
Moi ben. Xorxe elixiu o número 81. Gracias, Jorge, por chamar.
Un aplauso a Cataluña.
Muchas gracias, un saludo para todos los vecinos de San Lorenzo de Vicente.
Vamos a
Moi ben, pois para lá queda dado, Jorge. Moitísimas gracias por chamarnos, moi amable.
Jorge elixiu da forma máis clara posible o número 81. Pero vamos a ver que as persoas aquí no estudio van tamén elixir algúns números. Para eso vou a facer aquí un pequeno cuadro, tal que así, así e así. Pasamos unha liña por aquí. Muy bien, eso es, y vamos por aquí y por aquí. Muy bien, entonces tenemos un número 81, tenemos sitios para rellenar con números, y por ejemplo, ti, dime un número cualquiera, un número cualquiera.
Que vou para baixo, espera, a quen?
Un número cualquiera, pequeño. ¿Cuál?
El 8.
8. Vamos a rellenar, por ejemplo, así, o acaso, caos 8. Otro número, gritar números. El 9, vamos a meterlo, por ejemplo, por aquí. Otro número, 7, vamos a meter el 7 por aquí. El 3,
igual.
Bien, vamos a meter, por ejemplo, aquí el 3, ¿qué más? 60, bueno, 60, muy bien. Números pequeños. O 2, yo voy a meter o 2, por ejemplo, aquí meto o 2, otro. Bien, muy bien. 11 por aquí, otro.
5 piden por aquí.
O 61, aquí vamos a meter, por ejemplo, o 1, otro número. Bien, muy bien, o 1 de nuevo. 12, perdón, o 12. Bien, seguimos. Esto vamos rellenando todo, vamos a meter, por ejemplo, aquí, o 5, o 4, aquí metemos, por ejemplo, o 10, otro. Sí, perfecto, 62, y dos números más. Bien, 6, otro número. Bien, aquí. Pues metemos otro aquí, 3, bueno, ya está.
Mais.
Yo creo que está. Bueno, esto significa que hasta este momento, o a persoa na casa e vostedes aquí no plató, habedes decidido que todos os números que poñéramos aquí no cuadro serían decididos por vosotros, serían aleatorios, serían caóticos absolutamente. Pero, de la mesma maneira que un átomo de hidroxenio pode facer parte da mar, da agua do mar, pode facer parte dunha andorinha que fai o seu niño, pode facer parte da tinta utilizada nunha tela, unha pintura que ni siquiera sabemos que significa. Depende de como os átomos de hidroxenio se combinan. E tamén os números pasa algo curioso. Vamos a ver, estos números foron dichos por todos vostedes aquí, ao azar. Jorge elixió un número, pero vamos a ver, por ejemplo, qué curiosidad si encontramos alguna relación. Por ejemplo, podemos encontrar que si sumamos este número, con este número, con este número y con este número, ¿qué obtenemos? Curioso, ¿eh? 8 y 1, 9, 19 y 62, 81. Justamente.
Casualidades.
No, pero hai que encontrar a orden no medio do caos. Por exemplo, vamos a somar o que pon en esta línea, 8 y 11, 19, 20 y 81. Aquí, 60, 62, 79 y 81. Aquí tamén 3, 63, 9, 6, 81. Y aquí 10 y 5, 15, 19 y 62, tamén 81. No, pero esperar. No medio do caos podemos seguir encontrando un pouquiño de orden. Por exemplo, fijaros o que pasa se sumamos estes números na vertical. Tenemos 60 con 8, 68. 68 con 3, 71. 71 com 10?
81.
Aqui, 11 mais 2, mais 63 mais 5, quanto dá?
81.
81. Aqui, 9 e 4, 13. E 7, 20. Com 60?
81.
81. E aqui, 12 e 1, 13. E 6, 19, 62. Também 81. Pero o caos é moi interesante quando se trata de encontrar a orden dentro do caos. Fijaros o que pasa, si aunque estos números hayan sido ditos por todos vostedes o acaso, aunque 81 haya sido elegido por Jorge que llamó por teléfono, fijaros, vamos a sumar as diagonales. Eso es muy curioso, fijaros, sumamos la diagonal y tenemos 8 y 2, 10 y 9, 19 y 62... 81, pero vamos a ver a outra diagonal tamén, porque temos 1 e 7, 8, 8 e 10, 18, 63, dá exactamente 81 tamén. Pero xa para terminar, fijaros o que pasa se sumamos estos 4 números, 60 con 8, 68, con 2, 70, con 11... 81, y estos 4 tamén, 12 y 1, 13 y 7, 20, 61, 81, y estos 4 tamén, 63 y 3, 66, 81, no. Y si sumamos estos tamén, temos 9 y 4, 13 y 6, 19 y 62, tamén 81, y podíamos seguir, si sumamos estos 4 tamén, 2 y 7 y 9, tamén dá 81.
That's the magic square. It's entertaining, baffling, has a little color, and can play in any environment, from cabaret and theater to television. Best of all, it is trouble-free. There are no mathematical formulas. You can concentrate on selling the impossibility of the effect to your audience. That particular television show was live. They like to have phone-ins, so the paper was chosen by a random caller and with the help of the show host. But the routine works equally well using volunteers from the audience. You will also notice that I like to have people in the audience call out numbers for me to write on the board. That's very strong. More about that later. But first, let's discuss the basic method. The secret is very simple. It is hidden in the numbered sheets chosen by the spectator. On the back of each numbered sheet is the cue for the magic square you will copy onto the board. It is that direct. The volunteer chooses a number, you take the paper, and you now have a cue sheet for the magic square in your hand. The beauty of the method is that I can pick up this trick anytime and include it in a show. And I can devote myself to presenting the routine and make it interesting rather than struggling to make mental calculations. There is an additional bonus with this method. In the show you just saw, I used a beta version of this routine. The magic squares were generated in a simple manner. This meant that there are 4 numbers that stick out as being of higher value than the rest. Now I use an entirely different set of magic squares, and this is the version included on the DVD. They have none of the usual high number giveaways. Let's start with the preparation of the numbered sheets. On the DVD, you will receive a PDF file. It's a document you can use to print out all the numbers on sheets of paper. It is very easy to use. All the artwork has already been done for you. You will need a program called Adobe Acrobat Reader to open the PDF. Most likely, you already have this program on your computer. It is very widely used. If not, it can be downloaded free from the Adobe site at adobe.com. Here is how you use the PDF file. First, find the PDF file on the disk. It is in a folder marked PDF. Inside are 2 more folders representing 2 different sizes of paper. Choose which size paper your printer uses. I use A4, as does most of Europe. In the US, you will probably choose letter size. Inside the folder are two PDF files. Open the file marked Front. Print out the numbers on one side of a stack of paper. The numbers are in black. The last sheet printed will be a check sheet that will come in useful in a moment. Then take the stack of paper and put it back into your printer so that the other side of the paper can be printed. Do this carefully. You will need to know how your printer handles paper. Some will require you to turn over the stack, others won't. If in doubt, do a test print with a single sheet. Now, print out the file marked Back. This will print the Q on the back of each numbered sheet. When the printing has finished, examine the check sheet. If the printing has been done correctly, the check sheet will be printed on both sides. You can now throw the check sheet away. Finally, cut the sheets in two using a guillotine. You now have sheets of paper with numbers on one side and with the correct Qs on the other. Fold each sheet of paper like this. The numbers are on the inside and the Qs hidden in the folds. Drop them in a clear glass bowl, preferably one raised high for maximum visibility, and you are ready for the show. You need several other props for the routine. You can use a write and wipe board, but I prefer an easel and pad. This is the one I use. It's sturdy, but packs away easily for transportation. You also need some marker pens. I use 6, 1 black and 5 colors. From time to time, I have used this special marker. It has different color tips at both ends. It is very useful for differentiating the rows from the columns in the routine. It means I'm not handling too many different pens, and this one is from Art Skills. You can buy them in office stationery stores. Let's go through the performance again, and this time I'll comment on what I'm doing. First, tell the audience that all the papers on display contain numbers. If you wish, you can open one or two to show them and then have a volunteer mix them in the bowl. Someone selects one of the papers. Do this in the fairest way possible. On the TV show, we have a caller determine whether it was the first, second or third paper pulled out of the bowl by the presenter. The number chosen was 81. I draw the 16-cell grid on the pad. The Q is on the back of the paper I am holding. I am referring to it as I hold the paper against the board. I could quickly copy the numbers in a random order into the magic square and try to look as if I am making some kind of mental calculation. That would be one way of presenting the trick. But there is another way. It involves the audience calling out the numbers that will fill the magic square. It was inspired by Chan Canasta, who used a similar idea in which he made words from letters of the alphabet called out by members of the audience. Let's take a look at how this works. At this point, I ask the audience to call out small numbers. As soon as anyone calls out a number that is on the cue, I write it in the correct space in the magic square. I keep telling the audience to call out numbers, trying to get as many of them shouting out as possible. Every time I hear one of the cue numbers called, I make a point of turning to the audience, repeating the number I have heard, and then writing it down. This works for two-digit numbers too. In a large audience, it is very likely that some of your two-digit numbers will be called out. Even if only one of the numbers is called, I will write it in the space for the two-digit number. I can come back to the cell later and add the other number, either because by coincidence someone has called it out, or I can simply pretend to hear it. When I pretend to hear a number, I say, "Who said 31?" Someone somewhere will generally claim it, and if they don't, I just pretend someone did and write it down. Sometimes it's enough to say nothing other than Very good. And then write down the number I need. Turning to the audience takes the hit of you looking at the cue on the reverse side of the paper. You can catch a glimpse of the cue every time you turn to the board to write something down. With just a few empty cells left, I write the last few numbers down as if this is my turn to make sense of all the random numbers that have been called so far. Finally, I take a piece of tape from the top of the board and use it to hold the chosen paper in place with the number showing. All that remains is to add up the different columns, rows, diagonals and corners and reveal that they all total the chosen number. Do this slowly at first, taking the audiences through the addition step by step. Do not expect the audience to be interested if you rush throughout the addition. You need to add the numbers up. But yes, you can speed up the addition process, finishing on the center or corner squares as you please. Different performers have used different devices to highlight the numbers on the magic square. David Berglas uses masks like this. He can place them over the numbers on the board to isolate the columns, rows, corners and even diagonals. I use a system of acetate sheets. There are 6 clear sheets attached to this pad. After I have constructed the magic square, I flip the first of them to the front. I can now highlight the 4 corners and total them. The next sheet highlights the 4 columns. I can have any of them chosen and totaled to reveal the chosen number. Next, we have the 4 rows. Then the 2 diagonals. Then 4 quadrants. These are groups of 4 cells. They all add up to the chosen number. Finish on the 4 center squares. The results in a magic square with the main combinations are highlighted. You can use this system in reverse. Before you start totaling the numbers, you flip all the clear acetate sheets into place. Start the addition phase with the 4 corners, highlight them on the sheet, total them, and then flip the sheet out of the way. Repeat this procedure with the columns, rows, diagonals, quadrants, and center squares, each time you flip the acetate sheet out of the way. Finish by bringing all the sheets back into place to display all the highlighted squares and the corresponding totals. You can use the same idea with loose acetate sheets, removing and adding them as you think fit. Once you understand the basic system, there are lots of ways you can present the magic square. Let me detail one of my favorites. In this version, you do not have a number chosen. You start with a number and you end by having the audience discover it. What I like about this is that it can be customized to suit special occasions. It begins with an envelope. And I tell the audience that it contains my lucky number. It is one of the numbers from the set I use for the magic square trick, but I have written the magic square cue on the back of the red envelope in red felt pen. With the envelope in my hand, the cue is visible to me, but invisible to the audience. I remind the audience that this is my lucky number, but tell them that tonight I am interested in their numbers. I invite everyone in the audience to call out numbers exactly as you saw in the TV show. The audience call out numbers and I appear to be writing them down on the board. I tell them that if they hear their neighbor call out a number, they should call out a different number. I encourage lots of shouting and lots of numbers. But, as you already know, the only numbers I write down are the numbers from my cube. Once the board is filled, I start a new phase of the routine. I choose someone in the audience. They do not have to leave their seat. And I say, I'm going to give you a task. First, I want you to mentally choose one of these columns. I indicate each of the 4 columns, and I ask, have you chosen one? Good. I want you to add up all the numbers in the chosen column. Not yet, I'll tell you when. Then I pick other people out of the audience and I give them similar tasks. I tell one person to mentally choose a row and to add those numbers up. Another person is given the task of choosing a diagonal and totaling the numbers. Someone else is put in charge of adding up the 4 corner numbers. Finally, I tell everyone in the audience that they too can choose a column, row, diagonal, or the 4 corners, and that in a moment I am going to ask them to total their 4 numbers. I look at my watch, tell them they have 20 seconds to complete the task. Are you ready? Go! When 20 seconds have passed, I call stop. I ask if everyone has a total. On the count of 3, I tell them all to shout it out. And they all shout out the same number. This is an amazing moment. I then remind them that I have a lucky number. I open the envelope and reveal that inside is the very same number they just called out. There is another kicker, and this is where the trick can be customized. The number I have chosen for the show will relate to something else that is happening at the event. At a birthday party, I would use the number that represents the age of the guest. In a theater, I might use the seat number of a celebrity or VIP. Where possible, I post the number outside the performance space, in large figures, close to the exit. No one pays any attention to the number when coming into the show, but at the end of the routine I say, and if you pay special attention as you leave this theater tonight, maybe you will realize why you all had my lucky number in mind. It is an addition finale that gives them all something to talk about as they leave the show. That concludes the Magic Square. I hope you can find something you can use in your own presentations. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.